I'm Liz Bailey, the House Chair for the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee. I'd like to welcome everyone to our hearing. It's the 9th bill hearing of this legislative session. The focus is behavioral health related legislation. We are joined today by committee members to my left, Representative Hunt. On my right, Senator Jim Lovely, Representative Jose Tassano, and Representative Michael Day. So we have the room for only about an hour and a half. George just asked to remind people of that. And just in general, hoping to ask people to keep their testimony to about 3 minutes. Questions from members will be at the end of testimony. If you brought copies of testimony, please leave them for us at the end. Submitted testimony will be uploaded on the J Drive for legislators and staff to view later. So again, welcome everyone. This is an incredible turnout, and we look forward to the hearing. I'm going to call first Representative Cantwell, who's filed this piece of legislation, 3898. Former Executive Officer of Health and Human Services Secretary Phil Johnston. On a panel, former Commissioner of DPA Cheryl Bartlett, Peter Holman, Tom Duckett. So, enjoy.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much for taking us and giving us a special hearing today just on this one bill, the Prevent Bill, as we call it. I want to start, first of all, by thanking your staff, Madam Chairman, Margaret, Rebecca, and Natalie for their hard work helping Ben Thomas from my office and putting this legislation together and making this hearing possible here today. I know all of us, by the way, we're going to be under 3 minutes. We're practicing our testimony. But I want to commend numerous organizations, some of which are here today, that support prevention in the Commonwealth. Communities, as you know, Madam Chairman, for the lifetime of work you've been doing on issues that relate to mental health and substance abuse. We have communities from Barnstable to Scituate that are represented here today. Geographically, a broad group that's looking for ways to promote prevention here in the Commonwealth. 114 of our fellow legislators, I think including almost all the committee staff here, are co-sponsors of this legislation. I want to thank the Attorney General's office. They had notified through staff of their support for this, as well as sheriffs, district attorneys, the Association for Behavioral Health, Mass Organization for Addictive Recovery, William James College, Massachusetts Public Health Association, Youth Health Connection, many others who've taken a very active interest in this bill and will be testifying today. Do want to point out, too, our Department of Public Health, our Bureau of Substance Abuse Services, the Prevention Division, under the great leadership of Jose Morales and Fernando Parfas, they've done an incredible job helping us, and with the support and expertise of the Mass Technical Assistance Partnership and many others, we were able to put this legislation together. The call to action. The intent of this legislation is to expand on the tremendous work that you've already been leading in prevention, Madam Chair, and members of this committee. We want to scale up prevention in the Commonwealth so all of our communities have the real opportunity to take evidence-based solutions for prevention, to refocus our prevention so it takes an integrated approach focused across the spectrum of behavioral health disorders. House Bill 3898 creates the Special Commission, as you know. We want to answer 3 questions. First, what's working in promotion and prevention right now? You'll be hearing from a number of people talking of incredible programs that are being effective right now. Secondly, how can we invest in what's working without straining our budgets? I'm so excited you'll be hearing from folks here today about saying how we'll be indeed saving funds both in the area of human services, in public safety and the like. And the third, what can we achieve by investing in what works? Finally, in closing, why this is so important to us, beyond the tragic losses felt by so many Massachusetts families because of the opiate epidemic. Madam Chair, you know because you met with Ben Thomas from my office. Ben lost his aunt to an opiate overdose in 2014, as you know. He had to sit next to his Nana at a time when she was told by the doctor that she would not survive the overdose. Sitting outside of that little hospital room where his aunt's teenage daughter, 2 preteen sons, and a toddler, we bring up to talk about how the consequences affect across the board of behavioral health issues. They ripple throughout an entire family, as all this committee knows. We know investing in promotion and prevention will help us to meet the behavioral challenges of today, like the opiate epidemic, so that we're no longer just reacting to crises. We appreciate the time for this hearing today and respectfully ask, after the committee has time to deliberate, that we send this bill out favorably so we can take action, hopefully, through the budget. Thanks so very much for your attention. Now, Phil Johnston, our former Regional Director for Health and Human Services for our country.
Thank you, and well, it's good to be back. Not permanently, but good to be with you, Madam Chair, an old friend, and thank you for all you've done over the years in this area, and members of the committee, many of whom I know and have worked with over the years. I was thinking when I was last night about what I'd say this morning, and it occurred to me that Jim Cantwell lives across the street from me, so I can keep a close eye on him. And not that I need to, but maybe before he bought his house, there's another guy who lived 2 doors down from Jim, who built the houses in our neighborhood. And I was running one morning at like 6 o'clock in the morning, not for office, but for, physically. And I saw an ambulance in front of this builder's home. And they took out his 31-year-old son who had died of a heroin overdose. And this is 2 decades ago. So this has been a problem that's been festering out there for a long, long time. It isn't something recent, and people of color will tell you this has been going on in minority neighborhoods for many, many years. And I've always said, having spent much of my career in health and human services, that if I were king for a day, I'd put a lot of our nation's resources into the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, because I think it's at the root of a lot of what ails many people that we see go through many of our agencies in the human services system, not only here but across the country. And it's probably globally the case as well. So I'm very, very excited by what Representative Cantwell has done on the South Shore. I think it's quickly turning into a model for what the rest of the state can do, because we have to deal with this issue as a community. Families can't be isolated and just be working and dealing with these struggles with their children or loved ones by themselves. They need help from public agencies, they need help from private agencies, and Representative Cantwell has put together a coalition that focuses on prevention, that's evidence-based, what works. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we need a commission that pulls together all of these resources and all of these agencies. And I was talking to our esteemed hospital administrator, from whom you'll hear in a minute. If there's one thing I learned in many years as Secretary of Human Services here, whenever I had more than one person in charge of a particular problem, it got screwed up. And so I think we need one person in the system who can deal with all of the private and public agencies that are involved in this struggle, and that person should be empowered by the governor, and I know Secretary Sutter's agrees with this, and by the Secretary, to make things happen, not only at DPH, where great things have been done over the decades, but also in the corrections system. And don't forget, adult corrections was removed from human services 20 years ago, which I still regret, but that's what happened. And so those bonds between the human services system and the corrections system got broken in the early 90s. And so the coordination, really facilitating collaboration among all of these agencies, public and private, is just absolutely fundamental. So I think that this bill, House 3898, is a big step towards making some sense out of what has been a fairly chaotic system where many, many good-hearted people, well-meaning people, and agencies have been doing the best they can to reach out to families that are in trouble and their loved ones as well. So I hope very much that the committee will vote to support House 3898.
I'm joined by our co-chair, Senator Flanagan.
Good morning, Madam Chairs Flanagan and Malia and committee members. My name is Cheryl Bartlett, and I am the new CEO of Alosa Health, which is a nonprofit foundation that develops clinical practice guidelines to manage chronic conditions without overusing medications. And one of those areas is managing pain without overusing prescription opiates. And I'm also a registered nurse and been working in the field of prevention for a very long time, and here speaking today in support of House Bill number 3898. Promoting health and wellness and preventing chronic diseases has been a priority throughout my career. I currently serve on an expert panel at SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is focused on integrating mental health promotion and substance use prevention into primary care. Preventable chronic diseases, including addiction disorders, are driving costs of health care, as well as morbidity and mortality prevalence and incidence. Unless we change this trend, this generation is facing the probability of a reduced life expectancy for the first time in the history of our country. A commission focused on health promotion and prevention is an important step in the right direction to identify evidence-based approaches that support behavioral health care as part of the continuum of care that includes treatment and recovery support. Often our commissions and councils are come together when we've had a tragedy and things continue to happen and we deal with the consequences. We really need to get ahead of this, and this particular commission is focused on that. As we know that every dollar spent on prevention saves anywhere from $5 to $7 of medical expenses. These savings could be redistributed to address social determinants of health, such as education, housing, transportation, and poverty, the real drivers of better health outcomes. So I thank you for your time today.
Good morning. My name is Peter Holden. I'm the president and CEO of Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth, and I also serve as the chair of the Mass Hospital Association. When Chapter 224 got serious in Massachusetts about the fact that we were going to go from fee-for-service healthcare to more broad community-based, et cetera, we did a very, very quick 180 and said we had to get outside the walls of the institution and we had to be more heavily involved in the community. Hospitals tend to sit back and wait for folks to come to them and then figure out what to do. And we wanted to truly change our ways and partner with the community and see what we could do to help people in the community lead healthier lives, as opposed to wait and be train wrecks, come to us when they're 65 years old and say, okay, I want to know everything, which we could just about give, and then you'd be good for another 65,000 miles. So that's about the most expensive way that you can provide health care, and we wanted to get away from it. So we put together these activities with the towns around more physical activity, better nutrition, lose tobacco, and bike paths and walking paths. And every time we got 3 people together, they said, what about opiates and heroin? And it's like, well, and we're trying to do bike paths and walking paths, and it's opiates and heroin. So it didn't take long to figure out that that's was what the problem was. And we immediately, there were a lot of transformations going on in community hospitals, and there was money through the Health Policy Commission to enable improvement on those. And we decided that we were going to take all those funds and put them into behavioral health, and that we were going to begin an aggressive treatment program for people that were chemically addicted, and we went out privately and fundraised. We did not want this to be at the whim of state grants. We've raised over $1.5 million since, and we set up a program where we deal with the dual eligibles who are both qualified for Medicaid and Medicare and are probably some of life's most unfortunates in Massachusetts. We set up an integrated care program where we embed behavioral psychiatrists and behavioral clinicians in primary care practices. So they are side by side with interns and pediatricians so that they screen and treat people with behavioral health comorbidities on the spot. And we have partnered with the Heron Project. We've developed something called Drugstore Theater. Thank you. With Dr. Joe Schrand, where he takes reforming, not completely reformed, but reforming addicts, and they tell stories to their peers about what this is doing to them. We also have two specific programs I'd like to mention. One is called HPOP. It's Healthy Plymouth Opportunities Program. And what we've done for now 2 years is we had gone out and identified every business in Plymouth to find out what internships they have available for the summer. And we have gone to every junior and senior and all of the high schools and had a fair to match them up. First time we did it, we had over 300 hits. Because when we sat down with the kids the first time and said, what in God's name is going on in Plymouth that isn't going on to the same extent as there are other places? And the overwhelming retort was, once the bell rings, we don't have anything to do. We didn't make the team, parents are split, this, that. We have nothing to do. And those are the times we get in trouble. So those are the times that we've tried to fill up with programmatic and interesting thing. The other thing is we want to get to the youngest of the young. So we have a pilot program that is blossoming with Reebok. It's called the Box Program. And every day, we have about 25 kids in each of the elementary classes that come into school early. There is a trainer. They get mental as well as physical exercises and activities for about 45 minutes, and then they get a healthy meal. And what we're doing is IRB-based longitudinal studies over time to see how well the kids do socially, academically, etc. The early results have been wonderful, and we're going to keep pushing this. I probably at the end of my time, at the state level, as I said, I chair the Mass Hospital Association. And we set together a task force because we know too many of these pills come out of hospitals and come out of doctors' offices. So I went and said, if we could come up with a set of evidence-based best practices, would you commit to putting them in all of your EDs? And they did. So it took a few months to put it together because it was naturally more complex than you would think. But we came out with 9 guidelines, and people way smarter than me we got to do this, we got to do this, and I'm just there nodding like, And we came out with 9 guidelines and some education and training on what to do as a result, and we put those guidelines in place in every ED in the state that's a member of the Mass Hospital Association. We are in the process right now of trying to figure out what impact that has on the level of opiates in the streets, if you will. And but we did a quick and dirty on my shop. We do about 50,000 visits a year. It's a pretty busy ED. And we studied the 5 months before we put the guidelines in place and the 5 months afterwards, and we have a 25% decrease in the amount of opioids that leave the ED. That's called phase 1, and we did it in the EDs, not because we thought they were the biggest abusers, but we thought it was an easy, relatively contained place to do it in. Phase 2, which will be finished with in about 2 weeks, is every other licensed service in the hospital where opiates are prescribable. And we are going to put the same level of rigor, the same level of control, and an underwriting, educational, and training, continuing training module that will ultimately impact, I think, physician privileges and other things on the hospital. We are truly dedicated to bringing down the amount of opiates and substituting them with what they call multimodal analgesics. things like IV Tylenol that you don't think about, things that might be a little more expensive day one, but when they go over the length of the course of stay, they're actually less expensive. And I think it holds great promise.
It sounds very, 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 very encouraging to hear from someone in the position that you're in, talking about sort of systemic coordination and reconnection. And I just have to say, you know, I should remember this, but I don't remember all the specifics. But when you referred back to the time when DOC got split off from our other human services. And I think that's a question many of us on this committee talk about sometimes, is just how incredibly channeled in absolutely disconnected fashion these people come.
Well, the legislature tried to do it during the 80s when I was secretary, and I was very close to the speaker, so that didn't happen. And then the day I left, almost literally, they did it, and the advocates were able to keep DYS within human services. But adult corrections and parole moved over to public safety. And all those connections to the human services system, because, you know, if you're Secretary of Human Services, you've got your 17 agencies and you're focused on that. If you're Secretary of Public Safety, you're focused on the prisons. And so I continue to think it was a terrible mistake, but that's where we are, and I doubt very much it's going to change in the near term. But on this particular issue, as you all know, if you go into any county lockup facility or adult prison, you find substance abuse and mental illness in every single inmate, virtually, whether male or female. And it's just rampant in the correctional system. So it should be the coordination between Cheryl's old agency, DPH, and corrections just ought to be strengthened.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your testimony.
Next one, Commissioner. I apologize for being late from 50 miles west. I went by a couple correctional facilities on my way here. I think the commission, I mean, I've always been hesitant about another commission or another task force or another whatever in this building. I think I've sat on way too many to count. But my concern is, and my concern continues to be, especially with the Mass Hospital Association, is that mental health is the first unit to be closed down in any hospital across the state. And Cheryl was there when mine closed down in Fitchburg, that all you have to do is give notice, and you just close it down, and it's, you know, you can't stop it, you can't prevent it, because it's a money loss. And we understand that facilities are losing money. But some of the people on the commission, you know, the hospitals, the insurance companies, are the very people that we're fighting now to even promote additional behavioral services. Is that, how is this all going to come together if the insurance companies are telling me for addiction, best practice is Suboxone outpatient, or best practice is methadone, or best practices? I'm very hesitant to think that we're going to have a true report that will have best practices for everybody. They end up in the jails because there's no facilities to help them stabilize after they've decompensated. My ERs are overflowing people boarding to the fact that when the governor talks about a 72-hour hold for drug addicts, I can't consider it yet because there's no place to put them. So how
We have the same thing.
How do we rectify all of this and put everyone on the same commission when they're all battling at the same time?
For what it's worth, I think there are a couple of things that can be done, and I think there are a couple of things that could make huge difference. I don't know who decided to sort of cut the baby in two, and that anything goes wrong north is one system and anything goes wrong south is another. But that's what we've done in this country. And guess what? All the money has gone into the physical medicine. None of the money has gone into behavioral health. So that's taken place over decades. It's going to take time for that to get righted. But I humbly believe the only way that's going to get righted is if we bring the Department of Public Health and its responsibilities back in line so that it's responsible for the entire corpus. And if we ever get to budget-based reimbursement and the promise that Chapter 224 holds out and get rid of fee-for-service medicine, then the delivery systems will be equally responsible for the total care of the patient. And then you get the questions, is another PAT scan or 25 behavioral health workers, what's going to get us, what do our communities need? That's when you, I believe, are going to find a difference in where the funds get allocated as far as patient health is concerned. Until then, the sexy, politically strong-mouthed, physical medicine body is going to continue to hold sway.
I'd say also that a lot of this is about Medicaid and the corrections system. We're spending huge sums of money, something on the order of $70,000 to $75,000 per year per patient. And we all understand that Medicaid's in significant deficit right now. But a lot of virtually all of those folks who are in either county lockups or adult prisons who go through the ED and then they end up or in a mental health facility are Medicaid eligible. And so we're spending vastly more money in incarceration than we are on treatment. And so wouldn't it make sense to give Peter a few more, some more Medicaid dollars to provide treatment or some of the other community-based services that the Human Services agencies fund, rather than be pouring this money into huge institutions that incarcerate these people, who frankly, generally speaking, commit serious crimes.
Right, they're not crimes.
They're not getting treated. They're not getting treated.
Right, they're not going to.
And if I, just one last missing piece of the puzzle, if you look at the acute care system, we have medical control, right? You fall down in the street, EMT takes you to an ED, you're assessed, your primary care practitioner is contacted, your family is contacted, and all of a sudden, if that organization can't take care of you, you get airlifted or driven by a squad to wherever you need, and there's an electronic medical record that follows you the whole way, that everybody that sent you out the door gets copied back on, so that we know exactly what happened to you through the end of your disease. No such animal exists in behavioral health. We have no electronic medical record. We have no place where they go. They try and get bolted on to our ED, if you will. There's no record that follows them. We give them a couple of lists of potential referrals when they're at their sickest and say, best of luck, and we feel like we've done our job. We need medical control for this system of care, and we need the stops along the way, the primary, tertiary, and quaternary levels of behavioral health, that they can't set up their criteria saying, no, we won't take that one, we won't take that one. We need an EMS-based type system that says, no, here's the cohort of patients that fits with your license. You're going to take them. Don't give us this crap about reimbursement, or you're going to take them. It works for the medicine side, and now everybody tells you, oh, the only answer I get on the phone is yes, and they take the patients.
Those proposals that insurance companies want to pay people to pay the ambulance bills out. You've got this whole cycle. And I agree, I think once you come in for behavioral, once you become in for a behavioral issue, you're treated so differently, and they're ending up in the jail because they're acting out and there's no training. I mean, I have 11 cities and towns in North Central Mass, and I would love for every one of them to have mental health first aid, just for the guys in the front lines to know the difference between a kid who's being a punk and a kid who has ODD. I mean, I just...
This doesn't have to be at every ED. There can be 3 or 4 regional EDs around the state.
I just have to say that I had such a disturbing experience myself last week with a friend, this friend's sister who, in the Boston area, she ended up in the Boston area, went to detox for a number of days, did well there, got referred to either or hospital. I won't mention the name here because I won't mention the name, but the hospital that was physically closer to where the detox was where the family took her, and I was considered part of the family at that point in time. She did well for the first 2 or 3 days when she was in. She got great medical care, exactly what you're talking about. Wonderful care. I was up on the floor, talking to doctors, et cetera, et cetera. When it became clear she was 4 days into the visit, everything fell apart. And this woman literally ended up being discharged to the street at night after having come from a detox and having co-occurring, symptoms, and had co-occurring symptoms all along. She literally ended up on the street. Her sister went to the hospital to find out where she was, and she was told she'd been discharged. There's a little bit of back work being done there, but the next piece, I called the hospital that night and said, I was treated as if I was trying to get information, and they said, well, there are HIPAA laws that we can't tell you anything. I said, I'm not trying to get information. I'm trying to tell you, you have lost one of your patients. And my only option would be at that point in time, and I almost did it, would be to call the police, have her picked up, have her taken to court, and start that whole cycle again. And again, today, she's getting outpatient care for this week, and hopefully, but that gets repeated so many times. And this is an institution that I know has a competent behavioral health capacity. But there was such an incredible divide between the medical and the behavioral health that it was beyond comprehension. Who do you call and who do you talk to? And it just was so real. This person's life was at stake, and it's happening every day in all of our institutions, and we've got to do something to stop it.
I think that one of the issues is payment parity. We talk about what the parity issue is. It really is payment, and I think regulatory. If you look at a license, if someone comes into the hospital for any other condition, they can be admitted to that hospital, but they can't for substance use disorder or psychiatric illness. You have to go to a place that's licensed for that. So it's double licensure. And so I think that that's a problem. And what I think is different, Senator, to speak to your concern about another commission and will something get done, is I think that there's some dates for deliverables here. I think that if we start to make an assessment, number 5, assess the difference in healthcare spending on behavioral health, I think if this starts to get pointed out with all the players together, it's hard to deny what the problem is. And I think that this commission isn't just government agencies that are represented, that we have some advocates and providers that will be part of this mass organization for addiction and recovery, Association for Behavioral Health, and I think that they will hopefully bring the perspective of the care that we need out in the community.
One other piece on this is housing, which is, so you have all, your housing is critical for, obviously, for mentally ill people and people who are substance abusing, and yet we have very few beds, as you point out, whether it's clinical, from a clinical point of view or just residential placement, and so that needs to be addressed, and that's going to cost the taxpayers money. I mean, we need to confront that, honestly. But now we have, you can see how many various public agencies are involved in this issue. And so I go back to my original point, which is we need somebody in charge. And it's to your point as well. There needs to be a person, I don't know if that's out of the governor's office or out of the secretary's office, but there needs to be somebody who has the authority to cut across the cabinet secretary lines and and make his or her demands real, and has the authority to do that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that's very hopeful is that just the fact that we're all here and that we've been working on together with the different branches of government, the governor's office and Mary Lou Sutters, and the folks that she's brought in, and the people who are doing an incredible job of period. Thanks in DPH for so long, struggling to survive. Hopefully we're on the right track now, and we need to find ways to pull all of us together. So I've said too much, but my colleagues have. We've been joined by my House colleague, Representative Viola. Thank you. So I don't know if there's questions and comments. Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Right, just sign it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for your testimony. I guess I just have a comment. I think it's a wonderful idea. I was glad to be a co-sponsor. As you know, I spent almost 30 years as a manager with the State Department of Mental Health, and I've actually, since the 1970s, I've seen the evolution of the mental health services and behavioral health care, and the inherent problems that you've all been talking about today. And definitely there was a big schism between mental health and substance abuse, yet there were co-occurring disorders, but everyone had their own particular silo. I think it's changed to a certain degree, but much more obviously needs to be done. It's good to see that the department now is really moving forward in terms of providing integrated care between physical health and behavioral health, and I think that's long overdue and it's becoming a success. But certainly a commission that establishes best practices, I think it's a home run for everyone. Particularly that I believe it was like in the early or in the mid-1980s where the department stopped funding prevention and education services, and because money was obviously was needed to do that, and they went more towards community-based services, treatment, and then the closing of inpatient institutions. So again, I think a commission like this that looks at best practices is really the way to go, and I commend you, Representative, for moving forward on this.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it very much. Thank you both. As you know, Jim as well, I think many of us did sign on to Cantwell's bill. Thank you for that. I guess a couple of observations I just want to make. If you were talking about some of these things, I apologize just for writing. You have been triaging the problem and trying to respond and react to so many of these issues related to mental health and substance use disorder. And I like the idea that this takes a step back and now reassesses the whole problem and figures out some solutions and recommendations. One of the things that I would like to, as I read this particular language, it mentions may conduct 3 public hearings, and it outlines the different disciplines in state government and administration who will be involved in the study. And I guess I would just, because we've all been on the street level with this over the last couple of years, listening to the reality of what's going on, both on mental health and substance use disorder, I think may have 3 hearings. Now, this is a nitty-gritty detail. I don't think that's enough. I don't think the level of leadership that's involved in this commission is at such a high level. It's got all the leaders of the House, the Senate, the different commissions and administrative offices, that I think until we get right on the street and talk to the organizations, the families, and we've done this with the triaging we're doing with the substance use issues. We've cut them down, and that's how we come up with some of these solutions. But I would just suggest that we move along with this and that we consider, not may have, but shall have, some of our legislation that we do, and make sure that this group is really understanding. You're coming down to a Corrigan mental health place down in Fall River, or you're going to Pittsfield, or you're going to Baker Plain and everywhere. Just a real deep understanding, because sometimes at this level, we think we have it, but I think if we want to go through this type of an exercise, if it gets to that point, I'd like to see it get a little bit more on the street where the real issues happen. So thank you.
That's just a great statement, because that's one, you'll be hearing testimony after us from community coalitions who are right there at the front lines. And we do have, from the top, we have public health here, we have mental health representatives, the governor's office is here, the attorney general's office is already part of this, and their support, the sheriffs, the DAs. So this is, I think there's a critical mass of people saying, we don't, as the senator said, we don't want another commission, we want a working group, we want to have action. So very much appreciate the sentiment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a comment. Thank you for filing this bill. I'm also signed up as a co-sponsor. Just to follow up with that, I've been talking to, we all do, we talk to a lot of teachers. And one of the recurring themes that I'm continuing to hear, especially from preschool and kindergarten teachers, is they're actually identifying some of these children at that age to know who's going to be going through the system. So absolutely boots on the ground.
talking to those folks during those public hearings, inviting those folks in, educators, and talking to them, because I think that they just have a lot to add.
You're absolutely incentive. You're going to hear from the superintendent from Situate, you'll hear from the school committee member from Marshfield, you're going to hear folks in Barnstable, Situate, so it's a perfect point, and we appreciate the view on this one significant.
That's why we're doing those box programs in Plymouth in grammar school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
Written testimony.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
So I have to call Representative John Heck. Still here. Thank you for your patience. I will try to take my own advice and limit my comments. 3 minutes. I will use mine up.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Co-Chair, members of the committee. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify here today. For the record, my name is John Hecht. I'm the state representative for the 29th Middlesex District in Watertown and in Cambridge. And I want to start out, first of all, by congratulating and commending Representative Cantwell and his staff who have done such a tremendous job in bringing this bill forward and in creating a very broad stakeholder group that supports this work and that is here in large numbers to help us understand why this bill and what it hopes to do is so important. I'm going to try to be fairly brief because you have a lot of people still to hear from. I just wanted to speak today in support of this bill from 2 perspectives. First of all, I wanted to speak as the House co-chair of the Prevention for Health Caucus. As you know, back in 2012, as part of our healthcare cost containment bill, Massachusetts took the sort of first in the nation step of creating a prevention and wellness trust and funding it with a significant amount of money to support evidence-based, community-based interventions around preventable health conditions. And that Prevention and Wellness Trust, which is housed under our Department of Public Health, has really gotten off to a great start. It's doing some really interesting work through 8 different coalitions of community organizations all around the state, which are focused on a number of different preventable health conditions and are trying various sorts of innovative interventions, again, community-based, evidence-based, to see what we can be doing better in terms of preventing these sorts of health conditions, things like pediatric asthma and hypertension, and what that brings in terms of benefits for our communities and for our budgets. And one of the reasons that I'm such a strong supporter of this bill for the Promote Prevent Commission is that I think it is a perfect complement to what we've been doing with the Prevention and Wellness Trust, but with a particular focus on the behavioral health side, which has not really been a major part of what the Prevention and Wellness Trust has been doing to this point. So that's the first point I want to make. I'm also here as a representative of my district. And I just wanted to say a few words about, Representative Fiola was just talking about what's happening on the ground. In my community, I live in Watertown. The problem of opioid overdoses, substance use disorders is as serious in our community as it is everywhere around the state. We had 10 opioid overdose deaths in Watertown in 2015. The community has really rallied, I think, in a remarkable way. A coalition of youth groups, the schools, the health department, police, faith groups, business. It's really been a wonderful response. And their focus is, among other things, on prevention and on promoting approaches to risky behaviors that they think will help particularly young people in our community to avoid going down a path toward dangerous substance use disorders. And I have been talking to them about this bill, and they are very, very strongly in support of it. They see exactly how it will be of help to them on the ground. help to them in identifying what are the best practices, in coordinating with other groups like their own around the state and in other parts of the country and other parts of the world who have more experience with what sorts of on-the-ground interventions work. Help in sort of navigating the funding maze. And I think most generally just in bringing more of a focus on promotion of healthy lifestyles, prevention as part of the overall continuum of work on substance use and behavioral health issues generally. And I have some written testimony that I'm going to submit to you from the organization, our Community Health Center in Watertown Wayside Youth and Family Network, that's been staffing and leading the work in our community in support of this bill. And I just wanted to just quickly note their conclusion, which is that they're strongly in support of the establishment of a special commission on behavioral health promotion and upstream prevention. And in particular, they support the commission's charge to show people why prevention works and how the paradigm can and should move toward prevention as a larger part of the comprehensive effort to reduce mental illness and substance use disorders. So again, I wanted to share with you that perspective from the ground in my community. Your committee has done such incredible work in this session on issues relating to substance use disorders in particular, but the whole behavioral health issue. I cannot thank you enough for all that you have been doing, and I hope that you will give very serious consideration to this bill that's before you, that I think is a very, very useful and very important additional element to our overall effort in this area. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Take care. Next, we'll hear from Jim Vetter from the Education Development Center.
Good morning, Madam Chairs, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly before you today. I'm Jim Vetter of Somerville, and I serve as Associate Director of Health and Technology at Education Development Center headquartered in Waltham, as well as being co-chair of the statewide Social and Emotional Learning Alliance for Massachusetts. At EDC and SEL for Mass, we really appreciate the strong commitment to the promotion of behavioral health demonstrated by our co-chairs, by Representative Cantwell, and particularly some of the work that Senator Flanagan, Representative Malia did last year in the May in support of the SEL for Mass's successful conference right here at the State House. Thank you. As well as the work by many other agencies and others here today. With the growing number of opioid-related deaths in Massachusetts, with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health recently reporting over 1,000 opioid-related deaths in 2014 alone, there is clearly an urgent need for action, including the critical need for immediate response to prevent death in an overdose situation. At the same time, we know that to only address the most immediate manifestations of substance abuse and other behavioral health issues is not enough to ensure the well-being of citizens of the Commonwealth. From experience gained through work that has taken place over decades in Massachusetts, around this country, and around the world, by EDC's experts in behavioral and mental health promotion, who conduct research, develop programs, and provide technical assistance in behavioral health promotion and prevention, we have seen firsthand the positive impact that can be made when communities come together across domains, including public health, behavioral health, education, criminal justice, corrections, people with lived experience, and others, to look upstream and work to promote social and emotional health which research has shown can provide the resilience necessary to respond positively and helpfully to the stressors of life. This committee has shown wisdom in acknowledging the need for multiple levels of support, in alignment with the Institute of Medicine's continuum model of mental health intervention and our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Massachusetts tiered systems of support, among others. In these models, promotion and prevention activities for entire populations provide the bedrock of effective approach, saving money as well as saving lives. From infancy through youth, through adulthood, through our older years, social and emotional competencies are critical to our health and well-being. The evidence base is there. While there's more research to be done, we currently know a lot about what works in the promotion of behavioral health. Fear-based scare programs from decades back have been shown to lack effectiveness. But as demonstrated by the National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices and the effective social and emotional learning guides developed by the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, there are now a wide range of programs and practices used in schools and communities that have been shown to produce tangible results. For example, a recent meta-analysis of 213 rigorous studies of social emotional learning in schools, interventions that help young people develop competencies in areas such as recognizing and managing emotions and effective problem solving, indicates that students receiving quality SEL instruction demonstrated reduced emotional distress, fewer reports of student depression, anxiety, stress, and social withdrawal, fewer negative behaviors, including decreased disruptiveness in class, noncompliance, aggression, delinquent acts, and disciplinary referrals, and improved attitudes and behaviors, including better classroom behavior. But does the use of social emotional learning take away from schools' core focus on traditional academics? The finding was quite the contrary. Students receiving quality SEL supports showed better academic performance, including achievement scores an average of 11 percentile points higher than students who did not receive SEL instruction. What about the cost of proactive promotion of behavioral health? Can our communities afford to make this investment? A recent study conducted by the Center for Benefit Cost Studies shows that for every dollar invested in training in social emotional learning, there was a return of investment of $11. It takes foresight and clear-headed thinking to adopt a behavioral health promotion approach. We at EDC and SEL for Mass applaud communities across the state and the Commonwealth itself for their efforts in this critical area. The physical, social, emotional, and fiscal health of our citizens may well depend on it. Thank you, Madam Co-Chairs. Committee.
Thank you again. Next, I'd like to call Rebecca Gurwitz, the Executive Director of the Mass Public Health Association.
Hi, it's good to see you too. Thank you for having me, Madam Chairs of the committee and honorable members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Gewirtz. I'm the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Public Health Association. And like I would venture almost everybody in this room and here in support and to express our strong support for House Bill 3898. I want to thank Representative Cantwell for his dedication and commitment to prevention and upstream activities to make sure that we are looking at this crisis from the lens of how do we prevent it going forward and down the road. I also want to thank former Commissioner Bartlett, who's been extremely involved and active in helping to make this bill a reality. I spent just about 9 years as the Government Relations Director at the National Association of Social Workers, at the Massachusetts chapter. So I know a little bit about substance abuse, and that was something that we worked on and focused on. And at MPHA, it's a nice sort of connection because there is so much focus on prevention, and I understand that if we don't have prevention, we are always going to be in treatment mode. And a lot of focus has been put on treatment. And of course, there needs to be a focus on treatment because we have a crisis right now. But what I'm worried about is that with continued, specific, constant focus on treatment, we will miss the boat on being able to say, here is what all of these great minds together who are working on these issues, who have worked on issues of prevention and for years, have to say together. And I think this commission gives us this incredible opportunity to bring those people together to do that. Indeed, the bill was written by the interdisciplinary team of experts in public health and behavioral health. You know what this bill does, but the key things is what's working in promotion and prevention, how can we better fund what's working in our communities without straining our budgets, and what can we achieve by funding what works. You are going to hear many statistics today. You know all the statistics about what's been happening. I was most shocked by this one. The estimated rate of 17.4 deaths per 100,000 residents for 2014 is the highest ever for unintentional opioid overdoses and represents a 228% increase from the rate of 5.3 deaths per 100,000 residents in 2000. We all know how serious this is. What some of you might not also know is that I was, up until about a month ago, an alderman in the city of Somerville, where I served for 10 years. And yesterday I was with my little 15-month-old daughter, and we were putting salt on the sidewalk because people can't slip. It's very important. And across the street is a friend of mine, a neighbor, who is someone who's lived in Somerville his whole life, born and raised. And he came across the street, and like a classic neighbor who's lived in Somerville his whole life, had his own salt with his own shaker and was shaking my walkway. And he said, you know, I got to call the mayor's office. And I was like, okay, why? He said all 4 of his kids had overdosed. All 4. And one of them was now living with him in his house because he had suffered from a stroke and a heart attack, had a shunt in his head as a result. And his grandkids were now living with him too. So I said, yes, you should contact the mayor's office, and yes, we should do something, and we should do more about this, and we should prevent this, and we need to start focusing on how are we going to prevent this. And the thing about prevention is this, as we all know, it doesn't happen overnight. And so treatment is important, and treatment can happen right now. Prevention takes longer. It takes the thinking of all the people who are expert in this area, the folks at MassTap. They have been working on this for years and years and years, bringing them into the room, getting them talking to everyone who needs to be talked to. This commission, I think, while it's sort of big, I think the people who will be at the table are coming together under a recognition that it isn't going to happen overnight. But if we don't start doing it now, we're going to see more and more of my friends from across the street suffering these consequences that I know you're going to, again, hear more about today. So I would leave you by saying prevention, prevention, prevention. And we can do this with this bill. It says it just needs to be reported out in 2 years. It looks like, you know, I know I'm listed on this commission. I would push for sooner. I think that we should try to get it done sooner. I know you are on this commission. In the event that it passes, I know we would all want that, and understanding that it takes time and we need to put things in place to make sure we're getting it right. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? We're all looking for the magic wand of sooner. Next, I'd like to hear from Marianne Frangoulis from Moore and the panel. Perkins?
Very good. Hi, I'm Marianne Frangoulis. I am with Moore, Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery, a statewide association of people in recovery, families and friends who are educating the public about the value of living in recovery. I thank Representative Cantwell and Ben for inviting Moore to this session, and thank you to Senator Flanagan and Representative Malia and the whole committee for allowing us to be before you today. I was like thrilled to be asked to look at this bill before it all came to this hearing, and it was great. It was democracy in action, because I said to Ben, you know, there's a couple pieces here that maybe you could change, and he said, I think that's an easy amendment, and let me get to the representative. So it was an opportunity, as the way that things can work in government, to be able to talk things through, and that's the importance of having this commission. I've, as we know, been around for a long time, and remember the days that I worked in treatment. Today, the crisis, and has been for 10 years now, on the OxyContin, and I applaud the good work of this committee and the state legislature of having taken action. But if we take a look at the things that happened along the way, I was a little clinician knocking on doctors' doors and saying, please don't give my patients, Klonopin, because they're going to get addicted even further. And it was, you know, you are a lowly clinician. But step at a time. We want to look at, that's the woulda, the couldas, the shouldas. Today, we have an opportunity to take a good look at the good things that have been done. And everybody in their little corners has been saying for a good long time, we need to do something about really reinforcing prevention. And as has been said before, it will take time, because if you're going to do something well, you have to take it step at a time. And if I talk from a little bit of my own personal experience, I remember as a teenager, the school nurse, Miss Kilty, calling and saying, Mrs. Frangoulis, I think your daughter could use some help. And then it was a 2-month waiting list. That was back in the 60s. And then my brother, 5 years ago, say, he has 3 autistic children, and one of them severely needed help. Grace to God, I have a resilient family, and they decided to sue the city, and they won. But nobody should have to sue the city for help. So if we had prevention measures that really took into account the interaction of mental health and addiction, it would be really good. We need to do more, that's why we do more, but working with other recovery community organizations to build a greater voice for persons in addiction recovery, and in a behavioral health network for a voice for families and youth. We very much want to see an integrative system that helps to focus on prevention. Suffering should not be an option. If we do not plan to take action, nothing changes. Thank you very much.
My apologies, I have to interrupt just for a second. I'd like to introduce Senator Ross, who's my colleague to my left. Thanks.
Didn't know you needed a mic.
I do. You're saying I'm a loudmouth?
You're articulate.
Welcome. Thank you. Senator Flanagan, Representative Malia, and the Joint Commission. My name is Annie Parkinson, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I work for MORE, Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery, but I've also spent the majority of my life managing my major depression. I had a cousin who suicided from depression. I have multiple relatives who have many mental health issues, and if you did a genealogy of our family and looked at addiction, it would just look like a black hole. Sometimes dealing with people in my family, it's been like playing whack-a-mole. You get one thing straight and then another thing pops up, because that's how the system works. I remember as Mary Ann being a clinician and somebody getting clean and sober and a psychiatrist not giving medication for 3 months because they wanted to make sure they were truly mentally ill. And it was like, take my word, they're truly mentally ill. That's what I'm trained to do. But I'm here today to support Representative Cantwell's House Bill 3898 and the establishment of a Commission on Behavioral Health and upstream prevention. We have begun to make progress on the continuum of care in substance abuse, and it definitely needs to be replicated in the mental health and behavioral health fields, as often the two are intertwined. Which brings me to, I want to thank this commission for the passing of eradicating the Section 35 to Framingham MCI, which was the battle that brought me into being a big mouth to begin with. Creating healthier communities by creating promotion and prevention of behavioral health issues is an obvious choice. A commission could focus on what is necessary to guide our citizens and our agencies to build an environment where all people benefit. It could also focus on best practices and be able to fund those that are most effective. Promotion and prevention are always less expensive than treatment, especially inpatient treatment in the future. I would also hope for a commission that focuses on eradicating the stigma of behavioral health. There are a plethora of derogatory terms that are battered about very easily in our society. This practice has to stop. By doing so, perhaps people affected will seek out treatment earlier and bypass years of unnecessary struggle. Perhaps the general public may also come to understand this is an issue that needs compassion, kindness, and treatment. Thank you.
Very much. Questions?
Welcome.
Thank you very much for your time. It's going to call Margaret Hannah, Director of the William James College of Professional Psychology.
And I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Barbara Green, we're going to make this short if I do it together. So, hello.
So if you're here and you have any questions, sign in, check with the staff person to my left, and make sure you get on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I begin with a quote. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. It saddens me that this quote by Frederick Douglass was quoted in 1817, and here we are 200 years later and still talking about it. We are still over-investing in treatment and under-investing in prevention. We have to remember that investing in mental health relates both to the promotion and protection of mental health and to the prevention and treatment of mental illness and disorders. We've heard a lot today about what prevention means, and I presume everyone here has received a flu shot. Almost everyone gets one. My hope is in the 21st century that we will be talking about prevention strategies for mental health, just like we talk about getting the flu shot. This commission and this bill has the opportunity to do that. Promotion and prevention needs to start early. We heard Peter Holden talk about it. We've heard others talk about it. We know, and this commission will work on those evidence-based programs that begin at birth, around attachment, around teaching parents how to parent. We also know and are working on a program that provides early access to care, where we will not hear stories that there was a wait list of 3 months or 6 months. We have such a program that is statewide and yet working regionally, and it's called Interface Referral Service. We hold people until they are safely within a therapeutic alliance, and this commission will do more to look at programs like that. I'm going to speak now specifically about the constructs of a commission because, Senator Flanagan, you mentioned about another commission. I've had the great pleasure over the past 6 years to be a commissioner on the Commission for the Prevention of Postpartum Depression. Senator Lovely, you have been a part of it and you know the work that we have done. Why it's been successful, and I will bring and encourage this commission and bill to abide by these certain constructs. Why we have been successful, and I know, as you can see by all these wonderful people here, is that this is an issue of grave importance. We have a passionate leader, and that's what it takes, in Rep. Cantwell and many others. We have a collaboration of groups. We will and we have a structure, a process, outcomes, and we will secure funding sources. Everyone talks about collaboration, but what we know and what we will do is that our collaboration will honor the ability to embrace tension. We will be tolerant of the gray areas, and in prevention there are many of them. We will be authentic, we will leave room for change, and we will look for opportunities for productive friction, which is what it will take. I will leave you with another quote, and it's a quote of hope. Our present circumstances do not determine where we can go. They merely determine where we start. I passionately request that you pass this bill and instill this commission. We have lots of work to do, and we're ready to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, I will be brief. I'm Dr. Barbara Green. I'm the Medical Director of Youth Health Connection. I also wear a second hat as a clinician who's been in practice for 41 years. I'm here to represent 22 years of prevention-based mental health work through my role as Medical Director of Youth Health Connection, a risk prevention and resiliency building program of South Shore Hospital. We provide services to approximately 25 communities south of Boston and have been doing so for 22 years. There was very little work being done in the world of prevention 22 years ago. But by being creative, by developing a regional approach, by building coalitions in individual communities, by sharing resources, Youth Health Connection has been able to create environmentally based, sustainable initiatives and relationships fostering connection and collaboration. Representative Cantwell is giving a powerful voice to the vital role of prevention-based programming embedded directly in communities and delivering primary prevention services addressing issues across the lifespan through evidence-based initiatives. By doing so, we can leverage resources, significantly reduce costs, both in terms of prevention work and delivery of treatment, particularly if done so early in the diagnosis cycle, ultimately saving lives. By creating cultural sea change, a term I use, that within communities, we reduce stigma, provide education and information, link resources, and create accurate messaging. This enables us to increase the broad understanding of the role of mental health in our lives and in our communities, and to develop seamless, interconnected, community-based early identification, intervention, and referral. We are poised today to be able to do so immediately. We're ready to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have panel Anne-Marie Galvin. Thank you very much. Ben Rhodes, Gregory Erie, John McCarthy, Situate Facts, Situate Public Schools, and the town of Situate.
Anne-Marie, do you have a specific lineup for us? Or?
Do you want to open up, John?
I will be happy to open up. Thank you and good morning. My name is John McCarthy. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in Situate, and we're here to talk about some success that we have had in our school district and community with some prevention programs. And also thank you for taking me away from my snow day calling. I'd rather be here than there. So, so a little bit about what's happening in Situate. You're going to hear from my colleagues about the work of Situate Facts. And I've been in this education business for 35 years, and this has been one of the most successful programs in reducing substance use that I have seen. But Situate Facts would not have happened had it not been for a community coming together out of tragedy and out of need, and also supported by a grant that enabled this program to get off the ground and sustain itself over the last few years. So you're going to hear about that. What I want to speak to you about, though, is what's happening in schools and why I believe that schools and education are a big part of the answer to this problem. But it needs focus. All of you heard or have heard stories today or know people who have had issues with substance use, suicide, really the tragedies around mental health. What you don't often see is the unmet potential that occurs because of these behaviors. There's a lot of children who go through school who fall behind simply because they are not in a position to learn. All we hear about schools and the purpose of schooling is teaching and learning. But we do so much more than that, and it's so much more important than just teaching and learning. You hear about accountability scores and how well we're doing on student achievement, yet nobody is talking about social, emotional, behavioral health scores. We need accountability around that. So what we're doing in Situate is we have made one of our 5 strategic goals a wellness goal. And that wellness goal is focused on the social, emotional, behavioral, and physical well-being of students. You cannot get this work done unless you are strategic, unless you are focused, and unless you put your resources behind what you're speaking about. And so in Situate, what we are doing is we are looking at this as a long-term effort. There's no magic bullet here. I know all of you want a quick solution. There is no magic bullet here. We are looking at this as a long-term solution by putting our resources behind this effort. Because again, students cannot learn unless they are emotionally well. And oftentimes, we don't pay attention to that as much as we should be. You know, you have in Massachusetts and the Commonwealth here, we have a regulation that every child has to have physical education every year. And it's extremely important that that happens. Why are we not doing social emotional learning every year in schools? Why is that regulation not there? We have to have that level of focus. Thank you.
See why I feel quite fortunate to work for Situate Public Schools with a superintendent like this. My name is Greg Ranieri. I'm the Department Chair of Health and Wellness K-12, Situate Public Schools. I'm also the co-chair of the Situate Facts Coalition. I'm going to skip some of my intro because Superintendent McCarthy did a lovely job, but we embrace the whole school, whole community, whole child approach that's championed through the CDC and ASCD. As a school department, we're well aware of the data linking positive health outcomes of our young adults and students to their academic success. So I come from this from a lens of the investment that we make in a child has multiple benefits, not only so the benefits, therefore, any investment in comprehensive and collaboratively coordinated student health represents a winning commitment to a student's cognitive, physical, social, and emotional well-being. But it reaches beyond that. It reaches into the school culture. It reaches into a long-term community's vitality. As with respect to health education in Situate Public Schools, we implement 2 evidence-based programs. In the early elementary grades, we utilize Open Circle. It's a social-emotional program that one of my previous speakers alluded to a bit. It proactively develops social-emotional learning skills, including managing emotions, empathy, positive relationships, and problem solving. We then take another step to another evidence-based prevention program called Second Step in the middle school ages. Second Step is a program that teaches essential communication, coping, decision-making skills that help adolescents navigate around common pitfalls such as peer pressure, substance abuse, and bullying, both online and in person. As Superintendent McCarthy alluded to, part of our 5-year accountability plan, we've adopted a wellness goal. As part of the goal, we're making a commitment to strategically expand health and wellness programming across the district. This will likely include more health and wellness time on learning in the early elementary grades, which we've internally identified as a growth opportunity. With this commitment, we're also considering adopting other comprehensive evidence-based prevention programs like Bachman's Life Skills or the Great Body Shop. So the importance of social-emotional health and health education in schools in the short term, it helps students acquire core skills such as self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationships, responsible decision-making, as well as improving student attitudes and beliefs about themselves, others, and school. In turn, this provides a foundation which data supports for better adjustment and academic performance, as is reflected in more positive social behaviors, peer relationships, fewer conduct problems, less emotional distress, improved grades, and test scores. In closing, I'm fortunate to work for a district and community that understands the big picture for the whole student and works to find a healthy balance. We committed to a process of self-reflection and continuous improvement. For example, new time on learning schedules at the high school and middle school have afforded increased wellness opportunities for students during the school day. At Situate High School, we've implemented yoga programs for all students before school on Wednesdays, and meditation and stress relief sessions for students during the school day on Fridays, supported by community partners. Additionally, Situate Public Schools administration sincerely supports wellness-related professional development opportunities for faculty. Most recently, we've offered a series of mindfulness professional development workshops offered through Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, which are reimbursed through our contractual agreement with the school department. Similarly, on March 1st, the district has dedicated a full day of professional development to motion with over 25 highly engaging breakout sessions supported by community partners available to faculty. If any of you would like to attend on March 1st, you're more than welcome to join. But that's not common for a district to commit an entire day and pay the faculty for that type of professional development. So I feel fortunate to work for a school department and community that gets it.
Good morning. My name is Jen Lopes. I'm the only adjustment counselor at Scituate High School, in a school that serves kids in grades 9 through 12, over 900 kids. There are also multiple adjustment counselors and some part-time school psychologists, and I'm grateful to have wonderful colleagues. In painting the picture of what this looks like in our school, since September, I have seen over 100 kids who come to me in addition to when they may see their guidance counselor. I work with kids who may need a little bit above and beyond, either mental health-wise or family-wise, or for a variety of reasons. So I've seen over 100 of those. More than half of those students have been self-referred, which speaks to the need to be available and have connected adults in the building. The number one issue of kids that I see is anxiety, followed closely behind by depression. And then there are a myriad of other family issues and other things that come along. 12 students have been hospitalized since September in some sort of treatment, whether it's a partial hospitalization program, an inpatient program, CBAT program, you know, the range of services, substance abuse, those kinds of things. And I have made 41 new referrals to Interface. Margaret Hanna just spoke of the program, the referral service, because as you know, it can be really frustrating to get to the point, be in crisis and be willing to seek help and then not be able to find the help that you need. So Interface has been a godsend for us to be able to make the referral and then have the follow through for the students. A couple of years ago, Representative Cantwell was part of this process, as Anne Marie will speak a little bit too, about a young man that we had in our community who had passed away, had been substance involved for a couple of years, had been in and out of rehab, had committed parents trying to seek treatment for him, and the mom had considered trying to get treatment for him the week before Christmas, but decided to hold off because, you know, she wanted the family to be together. And unfortunately, sadly, as the story is all too familiar, he ended up taking his own life shortly after the holiday a couple of years ago, which led Anne Marie to ask some questions about suicide in our town and what do the numbers look like, what are we doing to address that issue. She went to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, Police Department, just trying to get numbers and had a hard time doing so. Ultimately connected with Representative Cantwell and Ben, and started to do some digging and found out that the rates of suicide were slightly higher in Marshfield and Scituate. So the Marshfield Scituate Suicide Coalition, Prevention Coalition was born after pulling together a group of community members, professionals, concerned family members, people impacted by suicide, kind of pulled all those parties together in a short period of time, and that committee was born and has continued to flourish and do work, and is now kind of merged with a regional suicide prevention coalition as well. There's so much that we do in the schools in terms of prevention, trying to do the address needs of the anxiety, the depression, so that we're not talking about opiate abuse, you know, in their early 20s and beyond. We have certainly some resources in our school, like we run a Kids of Promise group, which is for kids who have substance abusing family members. That's in the middle and high school level. The elementary school level actually is open town-wide. We have a program called Loved Ones Raising Loved Ones for both the kids who are being raised by mostly grandparents. There are 20-plus kids involved in that. And roughly 16 adults, I believe, who are the adult members, and it's concurrent groups. So you have the kids meeting and having pizza, and then the adults meeting. That meeting has gotten so big that there's another facilitator being brought on board to make that happen. So there's a lot of good work being done in Scituate. I know there's so much more that needs to be done. We're happy that you're considering this, and thank you all for your commitment to the behavioral health issues.
I don't need a microphone, generally speaking. Thank you for having Situate come today. My name is Anne Marie Galvin, and I'm the coordinator of the Community Coalition, Substance Use Prevention Coalition that we've been referring to. I'm also a member of the community and a parent of 4 children, and I always cry when I get teary at the beginning, then I come back, because really what we're here to talk about today is very positive. I'm very grateful to the work that this committee has done over the past few years to address the crisis that we're all suffering from. And I'm especially grateful that we're going to begin to really focus upstream, as many experts have shared with you today, because we've seen it happen. The Situate Facts Coalition was born out of tragedy and need in the community. And what has happened as we have pulled the parties together, the right people at the table, everybody at the table, which is a theme you've heard throughout today, is magic, and it's wonderful and much needed. So I'm going to try to quickly wrap up the Situate story for you and emphasize the value of having everybody at the table. As you know, working in government, that there are many great people doing great things in all of their offices with all of their budgets, and everybody has the right goal in mind, which is that we all grow old and healthy and happy and die in our sleep. But what we see even at the small community level, a suburban community of 18,000 people, is that many often the priorities were happening in different silos. So the police were doing a great job as they knew how to work on the opiate epidemic. The schools were doing a remarkable job as they knew how to work on prevention and to help families and children in school. Parents were struggling. People were struggling. So the real value of having a community and a coordinated approach is to get everybody at the table. What has happened in Situate is we have really seen by building it, people will come, and if you have it based in the community in a very opening way, so not at the school or at the police station, but in a very neutral way and co-owned by everybody, that they will come and they will help. So we have, I think the real reason we've had such remarkable success is for this sort of approach. We are a grantee of a SAMHSA, a federal grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Organization. There are over 30 of our grants in the state of Massachusetts. So Massachusetts is the second most DFC granted state after California, and that's historically been true. There are great outcomes, national outcomes for this program, which is for the community, by the community model, that also requires using evidence-based practices, so really working upstream on prevention. What we've seen, though, with these federal dollars and with everybody at the table, we've been able to do even more than prevention. That we've been able to do early intervention, getting people into treatment with Situate Police, and with people in recovery who have provided training, and we're doing a follow-up model similar to the Gloucester Police since last May. We now have a recovery community organization that has spurned from people in long-term recovery participating at our table. So it's not just PTO moms or people who have buried their children. It truly is everybody, and it's really quite wonderful. So that's my main point. Our town administrator, Patricia Pincasi, sends her regrets. She is stuck in Situate dealing with coastal flooding today, but she wanted to share her support for making this a statewide effort, because she has seen firsthand what can happen when you say yes. And I encourage, hopefully, we'll all be saying yes by the end of today. Greg Ranieri at the end here and I co-founded this coalition, very much a grassroots effort, but after attending one of those Youth Health Connection meetings. I was a concerned parent with a lot of substance use disorder in my own family history and concerned about the deaths in our community. So I began, and I had some time at home with my 4 young children at this time, so I began to do some research. This was 5 years ago in 2011, about what the heck was going on in Situate, and learned what was going on in Massachusetts about the pathway from pills to heroin that we're all too well aware of. So I did some research, found out what some communities in Massachusetts were already doing, and I reached out to our selectmen and police, and I'm very grateful to Greg at the schools who took my call and took my meeting. And that's really how it all started, with a very grassroots way. 2 years in, we applied for and received the grant, and it's been going very well since then. But it required someone besides Greg saying yes. We had to go to the town. We needed a fiscal agent. We were not a 501c3 nonprofit. There are little tips along the way, of course. But what I've seen is that everybody says yes. When you have the research and the right idea and you promise you're going to do it well, everyone has said yes. And people ask me sometimes, can you do that on your grant? And I say, it's the right thing to do. and I dare someone to say no. And we do it by including everybody and doing good research. There is a science to prevention. This is not just putting panels of speakers together. It's not just our meetings. There are proven programs. Greg has alluded to some of those. I've met with Secretary Sutter's staff and spoken at the governor's task force about some of the programming. We're not making this up. We really do know what to do. And the nice thing is we have proof that it works. So just in four short years in Situate, only a little more than 2 of those funded. And when I say funded, it's just a part-time coordinator to pull all the good work together. We've reduced high school binge drinking from 38% to 28%. We've reduced any drinking by high school students from 50% to 40%. And we've reduced regular marijuana use among our high school students from 35 to 20% past month use. And those are remarkable numbers in a short amount of time. What we expect over time is that we'll have fewer consequences, and the social impacts of opiate addiction will be reduced as well. I just want to highlight a few of our successful programs, and I look forward to being available to anybody on the commission and to Rep. Cantwell in the future to get into details. One of the programs we sort of integrate into our health curriculum is called social norming. Each year in Situate, we administer a youth risk behavior survey. It is similar to the Massachusetts Health Survey, but it's more of the national standard that we implement. We do that through SurveyMonkey, so we do it digitally during health class. Students do it on their own device. It's anonymous and optional, of course, and we use that data. So we have great data on youth substance use, on treatment admissions among youth in Massachusetts. It's all public health data, but often schools and communities fail to use that data to their advantage. We use that in Situate. I think the most remarkable way is by giving it back to the students. Students ask their health teachers, so, does everybody smoke weed? They want to know the information, and we feed it back to them in a responsible manner during their health class each year. I believe that's part of the reason we've been able to achieve some gains, because students are using language like that's not the norm. Students feed that information back to me in some of our focus group meetings. It's become part of their language, like social emotional health language can be.
I don't need to interrupt, but I just want to make sure we have to be out of the room by about 12:30, and we still have a few more
Okay.
folks to hear from.
Very good. No, quite all right, thank you. Should I wrap up?
You have some written testimony for us?
I can submit some, for sure. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead, finish.
Okay, so just very quickly, some of the other things we learned early on, we were doing a good job in school while there's always room for improvement, was the need to support families, to provide skills, not just information, but skills and education to family. And there are also evidence-based practices for that. So there's a Strengthening Families program. There's a program that we use called Guiding Good Choices, which is a prevention program, a 4-part workshop for parents of 9 to 15-year-olds, and received great success with that. It also established a family support group in the community. Gosnell provides a facilitator, and we have a Sunday morning meeting open to all towns for families that are already dealing with this issue, because we know that education and support, this is a lifetime chronic disease, and it requires that sort of support in the community. So while people are asking very often, so how did you get those numbers in Situate? What's the curriculum that you use? And our answer is always that it's not just the curriculum. That would be too simple. As you all know, this is complicated, a complex situation, and you really need to do different pieces, the primary prevention and also early intervention programs, and build the community support. And unless, in my opinion, unless we educate and empower all the people that are raising children, so all of us, pediatricians, kindergarten teachers, parents and caregivers and coaches, unless we all understand addiction and it's how it is preventable and treatable and from which people recover, not just the children, it's not just the children in the schools, but it's everybody surrounding them that needs that information and the skills. So we can try to prevent risky substance use in the first place, and we're seeing some success in this example. So thank you, and I look forward to your turn to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I know we're on a tight time frame, but I want to thank you, of course, thank the representative for his leadership on this. And, I guess, I don't know, more saddened or not after your testimony, because here's a community with 18,000 plus people, more or less, 100,000 median household income. You know, and I higher than 50% bachelor degree. Contrast that with my community. Contrast that with almost 90,000 people, 80% children in schools below the poverty line, median household income in the 30s. So I applaud you for what you're doing. I think what this work has to do is really distinguish and look at how we help communities with severe poverty, because it's not as easy. You can get people on Sunday morning and Tuesday night and Thursday night. You can't get people sometimes to send their children to school.
Right.
So there are differences, and I think if anything, I want to applaud you, but I want to also make sure that a report like this, a study like that, really takes into account, well, this disease of substance use disorder doesn't have a socioeconomic target. There are children and families that are so compromised in some of our communities that you don't see in others. So I just think that you highlighted to me that we've got to look at this and not just look at it as a one-size-fits-all. It can't, because when I look at these stats and on a Situate and I look at the stats on Fall River, the overall idea is prevention before we lose this next generation. We have to take into account those differences.
Absolutely.
Senator Rose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know you're on a tight time frame, but I think this is quite timely as well. There were 8 of us in the Senate that just recently returned from a trip to Colorado, where marijuana obviously is taking a very dastardly turn. What we learned from that state out there is they're having a hard time getting anything under control. We have a chance here in Massachusetts to get under control, because unlike a change to the Constitution they did out there, the legislature really has no chance to redress unless the constituency supports that. We're needing to get ahead of this, and we had a mixed group of 8 people from very different perspectives. They've all come back believing this could be the next scourge for us. This is not about just marijuana any longer with 7 to 8% THC. It's about how high potency concentrated THC used in a variety of products and administrated in a bunch of areas, that if that goes on the ballot and comes out legalized, we're in trouble. Another thing for you to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Every day. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't need grandstand on that, but I think it's very important.
Thank you. It is really important.
We start getting that word out, because I know our report's not go up until the 29th of February. I think between the 20th of February and November is a short period of time, so anywhere I can preach and move costs, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Incredibly important. I'm going to call Karen Paul, who's the director of the Custodial Youth Commission. But I also have to notice, time-wise, we have about 15 more people who signed up to speak, and I'm just going to request if there's anyone who can submit written testimony in lieu of testimony, spoken testimony today, we greatly appreciate it. Feel very badly about that, because we know there's so much interest and there's so much positive energy in the room from folks that have wanted to offer. So again, I apologize for that, but we have a committee on labor and workforce development here, and right on our hands. So, again, I apologize. Thank you.
I'm going to put my phone up so I can talk very briefly. My name is Karen Hall, and I am the director of the Stoughton Youth Commission, and I'm also the Stoughton Council on Aging director. That's a story for another day. But one of the things that people have eloquently talked about today is resiliency and prevention. But I really want to talk a little bit about prevention and what primary prevention is and why it's so important and where it manifests. I know that many people came to work today in the snow. Before the snow, do you know what I'm saying? Like when you came to work today, how did you get plowed out or and in prevention? When did that start to take place? When did you start to think about the snow? October? Last May? Last June? Because that's really what prevention is, and primary prevention is thinking about things that can be. We know that we live in New England, so we know that we're going to get snow. So long before the snow came, people were prepared. Towns were prepared with snow and salt. We had our rock salt, we had our shovels, we had our snow rakes, we had all of those things. And we've also many times have had the benefit of mentors or different things like that for people to know how to deal with the snow. But if we waited for the snow to come, We wouldn't have shovels, we wouldn't have rock salt, we wouldn't have all those things. So when we think about prevention, we really need to think about it many, many steps behind what is actually happening now. So when people have talked about thinking about the next generation and the next generation, we often say for kids in sports, you play like you practice. We have to be teaching kids on a regular basis to implement these social and emotional needs long before the crises hit. And this primary prevention really talks about things all the way from kindergarten and all of those things, but really casting a web of all the different things, from the schools to parenting, to all of those different things, to society, to policies, and all of those things really creating the web. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I feel like so strongly about this commission, is that it helps to create the web, that every strand from all the different pieces is really what's going to help our kids and to help our kids in the long time. So we know how to handle snow, and prevention is the same thing. We know what works in prevention, but it's a long-term game. It's winning the war. It's not winning the battle. Treatment is urgent and important, and that is very helpful. But just dealing with the important pieces sometimes gets lost, which is the primary prevention. And I think that for us, that is really the things, because community coalitions and all those things, which you'll hear testimony about, are super important. Clinicians and treatment and all of those things. But I think that creating a web at the individual, the family, the community, and the state level is really important. And to having that all together under one roof gives us the chance and the opportunities to talk about things. So I want to leave you with that, and I will also be submitting written testimony for the town of Stoughton, and you will also have video testimony from our community coalition. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments? Okay. Next, Tim Feely. Mr. Feely, on behalf of Representative Selly.
Thank you, Chairwoman Malia. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I had like a little 30-second spiel to give, but I'm going to keep it even briefer. Like you said, I'm here for Representative Jim Maselli. He just wants to express his wholehearted support for this bill. It's a great bill. I know you've been hearing it all day, Representative Cantwell, but once again, commend you for this. And but really, the main point of me coming up here was to introduce a constituent of ours from Wilmington, Mary Giroux. She wants to tell you a little bit about her story. So thank you once again.
Good morning, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. Again, my name is Mary Giroux. I live in the town of Wilmington. I have 4 kids. I actually grew up in Wilmington, and actually I graduated from high school with Jim Maselli's son. That's how old I am. So I had 4 kids, Devin, Josh, Ryan, and Nolan. 2 girls, 2 boys. Wonderful kids. Taught their CCD classes, went to all their sports. Josh was my second. He started, unbeknownst to me, sampling things as early as middle school. I did not keep alcohol in the house. I was deathly afraid of it because addiction also runs in my family, and mental health issues run in my family. I have a brother who's schizophrenic, so I watched my parents go through all the difficulty of trying to get him help when he needed it as well. He's doing well. My son, however, is not. On October 24th, 2013, my 24-year-old son passed away of an overdose. All the events leading up to that is what I want to speak to you about right now. When he was in high school, I was there every day. I talked to his guidance counselor almost every day. I made appointments with the principal. I even spoke to the on-site police officer. I knew he was in trouble. They had no avenue for me. They had no help. He could have been caught right then. Do you understand? That's what I'm trying to stress. That all this talk about prevention, they're 100% right. If I could have saved him then, everything that happened after that would not have happened. He would not have gotten arrested. He would not have spent 58 days in the Nashua Street Jail when we begged the judge to send him to treatment. He wouldn't have damaged 30% of his heart with his first overdose. He wouldn't have died at 24 after 8 months of being clean, because addicts continually relapse. It is the nature of the disease. His sisters will be forever heartbroken. His 25-year-old sister has already lost 2 of her friends and her brother to this. She's 25. Something needs to be done on an early level so they don't get there. I cannot stress it enough. His brother right now is the United States Marine serving, he's at 29 Palms in California. He's a Lance Corporal. He's got a degree in accounting from, ironically, UMass Dartmouth, which was just all over the news as well. His plan when he gets out of the Marines is to be a DEA agent. He has been forever changed by losing his brother. My daughter ended up having to do CPR on him the day he died. She suffers from that daily. She'll never get that image out of her head. I used to tell my CCD classes when I taught, because all my kids went through CCD in Wilmington, I taught their classes, I volunteered everywhere. Be kind to those kids in school that are having a hard time. You don't know what they face at home. Be kind to them. I think that's what we all need to do now. We need to be kind to these parents and these children and give them something to work on before they end up having to go sit in a courtroom and watch them shackled and taken away. That is not the way to treat this. So thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful that so much is being done right now to solve this problem. It's in your hands. On behalf of me and all the other moms and dads and grandparents who have had to bury children, thank you for trying to solve this problem, and I will pray every day for your success.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're going to have to wrap it up. I think, I'm not quite sure. We still have quite a few people that would like to testify. All I can suggest is that if it's at all possible, try to submit some written testimony. I don't know, I think we can try to take one more group, but we're really got another committee waiting outside the committee and start the hearing. So I'm not sure if there's anybody who wants to try to be the last wrap up.
May I?
Okay.
I really feel compelled, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak ever so briefly. My name is Carol Schrand. I've been on the school committee in Marshfield for 12 years.
Yep.
My husband, Dr. Joseph Schrand, was hoping to be here this morning, but was needed at the hospital. And he's the medical director at Castle, the Clean and Sober Teens living in Poward and Brockton, and is also opening up a new unit in Middleborough for adolescents. We co-founded the Drug Story Theater, and that Mr. Holden spoke about. Many people get the name a little mixed up, but I wanted to say that part of, I'm not even going to tell you what we do and go into all that because I know we're in a hurry, and I'll leave a little document for you about what we do. I just wanted to say one of the things we noticed on the surveys that we get back from the kids is that how few kids, juniors, seniors, know anything about their brains. They don't, I can't believe how many, on the surveys, and I'll leave you a copy also, you know, the prefrontal cortex, they don't know what it is when they come into the show. When they leave the show, they know what it is. But what I feel as an educator and with my experience with Drug Story Theater is that it's so important that we do get it into the curriculum. Teachers need to be learning about brain-based learning, and they need to be teaching the children about how their brains work and why they matter. From kindergarten, someone mentioned from birth, right through to the 12th grade and beyond, that they need a deep understanding of why their brain, you know, that cutoff we were talking about earlier, it happens in the way we educate our kids. We're not talking about the brain at all. So I think that in terms of what the commission is doing, which is incredible for all the reasons we've heard today, and it's so very, very necessary, that education really does need to be a big, big part of prevention, and it should be written into the curriculum like so many other things are. And the culture and climate focus that Scituate is doing is another big, big thing. And to have that on your strategic and district plan is something many districts kind of veer away from because they're so worried about teaching and learning. But if you're not also thinking about wellness and these issues, then the kids are not in an environment where they can absorb that information. So kudos to Plymouth and their program, feeding the kids, and another town that's doing more recess time so they actually can unwind and socialize, and all those programs, they are out there. We just need to be sure we're doing it consistently across the board in all our schools, and that we have to look to the state for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The only thing I can offer is you can also contact our committee staff, Margaret Weil, who's been taking notes, Rebecca, Rebecca Kay, our council. We will do anything that's possible to try to follow up with you. Again, my apologies. I think one of the lessons that I've learned here, and specifically today, is that there's so much that needs to be said and there's so much that needs to be heard. And we will do our best to try to stay in touch with everyone. But this has been an incredible learning experience. I think for myself, and I can speak for the members of the committee that have been here. We really want to thank you all for being here, for your time and your energy, but also thank you Representative Cantwell. This is, I'm hoping one of the things we're all getting from this is that, we're on a long journey, but every journey starts with the first step. I think this has been a great, as I said, a great learning experience for all of us. So thank you for sharing and for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chair.